Hello and welcome to my video. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Lauren. I just retired about a year ago from teaching high school chemistry and physics on Long Island for over 25 years. And what I'm trying to do with my channel is not only help students with chemistry and physics, but also help fellow science teachers in New York State and beyond that have to deal with these next gen science standards. And in New York State, of course, we have the New York State Science Learning Standards. What we have to deal with in New York State, which might be different than other states, is that we have specific science content exams at the end of a school year. Those assessments make it a little bit more difficult as far as navigating these standards and figuring out what we're teaching and how we're teaching it. Now, I've already done a video on science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts. If you haven't watched those, just check out my channel. They're there. In this video, I want to focus on the disciplinary core ideas. In other words, what are we actually teaching here as far as the material to the students? I've sat in on numerous department meetings where time and time again, we went over the science standards, but my question always came back to, well, what am I teaching? What's maybe new that's going to be part of now the chemistry of physics class I'm teaching, and what's out, or should it be out? What I'm trying to decipher, and I have some, I think, important links for you and what I would do if I was still teaching. June 2026 is the first installment of the chemistry and physics Regents exams, the new ones. The good news with New York State, because biology and earth and space science will be coming in June 2025, is New York State is smart enough to give the school districts the option of the old regions versus the new region, hoping for all of the science teachers across New York State that they can work with the students with the old regions, but then be able to kind of decipher what's going on when the new tests are published. But that might not be the case for you. Also, if you're a new teacher, then you have no history of maybe the old standards, and you might be coming in right away going for these new science learning standards. Of course, you've probably already seen this. If you haven't, I'm glad you're here, that we have these performance standards, if you will, or expectations, as they call it, excuse me, that the students are supposed to be able to do at the end of the course. And you'll notice all these performance expectations are action words. They're using, they're planning, they're conducting, they're developing, they're communicating, analyzing. With that, we have to get them to think, quote unquote, like a science or an engineer. That's part of developing our lesson plans around how we're going to do that here in the science and engineering practices. And then with the cross-cutting concepts, students being able to make connections. I always go back, well, that's all well and good, but we have to teach the student. You can't explain the solution for something or analyze something without having that foundation. That's where the disciplinary core ideas come in. The problem with chemistry and physics is it was presented as physical science, and it wasn't necessarily separated out. Now maybe it wasn't separated out because a lot of high schools might just have a physical science class as opposed to a separate chemistry and physics classes. But New York State, of course, there's a chemistry Regents exam and a physics Regents exam. We want to be able to pull it apart so that we make sure we're doing the best for a physics class and a chemistry class. And I found a couple of things. Let's check it out. Fairly recent. This is under the New York State Science Learning Standards website, broken it up into pre-K through 8th grade, science, earth and space, biochem, physics. So of course I'm clicking on chemistry, and you'll see here once again it talks about June 2026 being the first time that the students will have the new chemistry exam. There's 21 performance expectations, it's saying, on the chemistry course map. The maps, quite frankly, are confusing. This is listing, and I think that this is a better way to present the information. It says that the information is the exact order it appears in the chemistry course map, but you don't have to do them in that sequence. Keep that in mind. Whatever works best for you is going to work for everybody else. Here's the contents. You see here that we have, of course, the main standard and then the little broken up standards underneath. Once again, here's the action words. Using, planning, we saw that already. It's just a different format here. If you expand on each of these, you get the clarification statement, kind of where we stop as far as what the students will be assessed. It doesn't mean as a teacher you can't go beyond that, but what the students would be tested on at the end of the school year is stated here as far as this clarification statement. Click on read more. It bounces you to this section. Now, this is where I get kind of upset and frustrated. You'll see under resources, there's nothing here. You're going to see under assessment, nothing here. This is for chemistry and physics, and we might say, well, okay, 2026 by the time we have the test. But still, if we're supposed to be planning and kind of turning the ship around to have students think more like scientists and engineers, you got to give me some information here. And what's really disheartening is the bio and the earth and space science will be June of 2025, and it's the same thing. This section could be expanded upon, but there's nothing there. That I find is a little disheartening, at least at this point. The best part of this website or these pages is that it separates the performance expectations for chemistry and the performance expectations for physics. Once again, my frustration is, while this is separate, this is for chemistry, so this is good, I'm still a little confused of what the heck is in and what the heck is out. For that, then, I said, wait a minute, let me go to the American Chemical Society. They have some great resources for teachers. I want to show you that. At the American Chemical Society, the high school chemistry part, and I'm putting links to all of these in the description. So you just click on it and you can get there as well. This is the disciplinary core ideas, which is way too fuzzy. And here's a list of chemistry concepts that we need to teach. Remember, this is based on the NYS Science Standards. Let me go back to New York State standards for a minute because we do need to add to this. And what do I mean by that? Under the New York State Learning Standards, what's highlighted in yellow is not part of NextGen. This is New York State only. What we have to do, or what you have to do, of course, is make sure that the concepts that you're teaching include these two. So be very careful when you're using some sort of NextGen science standard material that we don't forget about these. When it comes to physics, we have that index from the New York State website now for physics. Actually, let me go back. Instead of chemistry, let's click on physics. Here, this is the New York State site listing contents and then listing these performance expectations related to physics. Again, just like American Chemical Society, they have a book on the role of physics in NGSS. New York State, we go beyond NGSS with some of the physics topics. Be aware of that, but this is a great place to be. And if we scroll down, we are checking out Table 5. Physics language used in high school NGSS. I love this. Under mechanics, what's explicitly included in NGSS and language omitted. Notice they say language omitted. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't teach, for example, scalars and vectors or, one-dimensional, two-dimensional motion, etc. But it's not included in the NGSS wording. And this, for me, definitely kind of clarifies my confusion and my frustration from day one when I started reading those standards. They're too darn confusing. Why can't, either on a national or a state level, just give me what the material is that we're teaching, and we will do our best to get students thinking like scientists and engineers. It should be that simple, but it's not. I would, if I was teaching a physics class coming up, I would totally make sure that I have this printed out and hanging on my wall. So now, final part of this video is what would I do if I had to plan for a chemistry Regents and a physics Regents exam at the end of the year for my students. Obviously, for this year, I would just keep going the way I've always done, because they're taking the current version of the Regents exam. But once they have to start taking the new version of the exam, I would still teach the content the same way, but then I would add in the science and engineering practices and the cross-cutting concepts wherever I could, and have those words of using, conducting, analyzing. I would emphasize those more in maybe handouts that I gave the students, part of their labs when they were doing labs, and then of course I would add some of that as far as a test, maybe one question a test. And that's how I would work through it, at least to start, until we get some publishing of the new exam and we can kind of see where they have to be as far as performing for those Regents exams. All of the links will be in the description. I hope this helped. Do the best you can. I know teachers work hard and they're concerned about the students. You don't have to do whole-scale changes. I don't believe at this point, but certainly the American Chemical Society and the American Association of Physics Teachers is there to help us and really give us more of the nuts and bolts of what we want to teach, and leaving the how to teach to us. Have a great day and good luck.